Live. Thanks for being here. If you're joining after the event, also welcome to you. This is an impromptu question and answer session. So if you have a question, if you are currently in a situation, there's something you're struggling with, there's something that you're feeling stuck with, something that you want input on or coaching on, then feel free to let me know. I also wanted to let you know that I have recently opened enrollment for this cycle of coaching. I have not enrolled a new cycle of coaching this year yet. So if you would like to work with me one-on-one, if you've ever been interested in that, I encourage you to click the link beneath this video and it will tell you a little bit more about coaching and you can make an application. And if you make an application, it doesn't commit you to anything. It's free of charge. I check them over, and if it seems like it could be a good fit, then I schedule some time on the phone with you and we check it out. So that will be the first link beneath this video. If you are joining us here live and rolling in, feel free to say hi. Let me know that you're here. Let me know where you're tuning in from. Let me know how the weather's doing. It's sunny here at the moment, but it's going to be going into a stormy weekend, which I'm not looking forward to. Look at that, you know, that's good old British. We get the weather bit done. So yeah, hit me up in the comments here if you are with us. And I'll just say this by way of perhaps sharing just a little bit more about the sorts of coaching I do with people. You know, if any of these situations applies to you, right? You are in some kind of situationship, right? Or former relationship that you can't fully let go of. If you are perennially single and you don't want to be single, but you don't have any kind of prospects that are coming into your field, that's something I help people with. If you're in some kind of love triangle, if you are trying to release yourself from the interest of someone who is partnered and says they have feelings for you, or there's some kind of connection that's developed and you don't know how to move on from it, right? If you're looping on someone that you can't get out of your mind, right? Perhaps in your career, you know, and COVID has given you some period of time to reflect that you want something more, that you want more freedom and flexibility, or that actually there's a deeper purpose for you to bring into the world now, and you're ready to take some action on that. You know, I help people invite their new expression in the world. I have been through that myself. I know it can be challenging, but it can also be incredibly rewarding if you can face the fear and doubt. Perhaps you actually need a change of scene and you're lucky enough to be in a financial situation right now that you could take a little bit of a step back from work and consider your options, right? So sometimes I help people into sabbatical or into taking a work vacation or some kind of change of orientation in their day-to-day so they can take stock of what does life want from me now? Like, who am I now in this period? Maybe you're noticing that you're just kind of in a rut and you're stuck and you're kind of going through the motions, but you know there's something that is more alive in you that you don't even know how to get in touch with or back in touch with, right? Sometimes I help people reignite their sense of authentic self and their authentic aliveness, you know? So if you're feeling sort of like you're a shadow of your true self, that's also something I might be able to help you with. So any or all of those issues, if that's yours, if you've got something else, let me know and I can let you know. You know, and if I can't help you, I might know someone who can. I'm obviously connected in the coaching world. So if you're at all interested, look at the link beneath the video. Now let me come and say a few. Oh, no, I'm appearing on the screen here. I'm gonna try and say a few hellos because I've seen some comments coming in, but I'm having to upgrade my tech skills in real time. All right, here we go. Bright and warm in Webster. Welcome, Jennifer. So I apologize. You're going to have to tell me where that is. I don't believe I've been there. I hope I'm not making that up. Hey, Jill. Thank you. I was just watching one of my past lives. It almost sounds like past life regression. I think you mean one of the past YouTubes, right? That's cool. Thanks for being here. AD, hello from Indiana. Welcome. Cloda, great to see you. Yeah, thanks for being here. Our weather's atrocious in Ireland. No. Well, I guess I guess someone's got to pay the price for that greenery, hey? Jill's in California, Claudia's in Germany, welcome. Rochelle's in Bedfordshire, UK. Welcome one and all. Webster, Texas. Yeah, okay. That's great. Where NASA is, right on. Yeah, let me know if any of you have any questions and they can relate to coaching, if that's something you're interested in, whether that's coaching with me or coaching with someone else. I sometimes help people get clear on what they would want from coaching. But you're also welcome to bring any questions that you've got here in the moment. I've been enjoying putting out more videos recently, and I want to thank you for all the views and questions and comments. Keep them coming. They're awesome. And yeah, I'm also excited. I've got a few in the can to be released in the coming weeks here, and I think you'll like them as well. So the other thing I wanted to ask you, I will be at some point, maybe as we move into the back half of the year, I will potentially be getting into some more collaborations. Is there anyone that you would like to see me bring on this YouTube channel? Anyone you'd like me to dialogue with, interview? Anyone that you think would have simpatico with my kind of perspectives, or maybe even someone that doesn't, but you'd like to see what happens? I'm definitely interested in this space of trying to find greater ways of connecting and understanding in this time that seems like it's just easier for us to do the opposite, right? It's sort of easier to imagine we can't understand people, or to imagine that perspectives can't meet, or it's just sort of simpler to kind of put people down in a certain way. And I really would love to be part of the not that, and the of helping us collectively make better sense of what is happening and what is possible. So let's have a look here. Helena Hart. Yeah. I think I had Helena on back there. I'd love to have Helena on again. Please don't say that about women over 40. So 80 says, I keep seeing a lot of content about women over 40 being worthless and doomed to be alone. You know, I have not seen any of that content. I don't really have any interest in that content. That doesn't seem true to me at all. No, and if you actually think about the tools that we have, you know, even if they're sometimes frustrating, I actually think there's much more opportunity for people to connect at any stage of life. And the over 40s dating pool is massive. So there's no numbers issue there. I think the issue can be if people start to concretize themselves into perspectives that aren't helpful and serving them. But that's about, you know, your own cultivation of mindset. Do you still work with Clayton? So yes, Clayton and I do still work together. We just have done less. I'm actually excited because I think we're going to be getting together in person later this month for some. We're still, you know, great friends, you know. So we probably spend a little bit more time in the kind of the friend space than we do in the collaboration space in this cycle. But we still have the Becoming the One community, and I mean, pitching him. I want to do some collabs, like YouTube video collabs. So you feel free. You comment on Clayton's channel. You let him know that he needs to make some time to get on Jack's channel. But I've actually, there's a specific thing I want to talk to him about. We had this really rich discussion back in the day that was to do with the interface of obligation and desire. And in a sense, can you reframe any obligation if you choose it meaningfully? Does it then become a kind of authentic desire? And it was interesting because we sort of came from naturally slightly different starting points, and it helped me kind of get. And that's one of the things I appreciate about all the conversations I have with Clayton, is that, you know, sometimes helps me realize where my own to locate myself, right? And that's one of the values anytime we come into contact with people, is to be able to locate ourselves more fully. But it was one of those where I was like, I wish this had been, you know, I wish the camera had been with us, because I think this would have been of interest to more people than just me. And it's it's some of those like richer, almost a little bit more philosophical style of conversation that I want to see if we can capture a little bit more on YouTube. Shadow work. Yeah, do you mean shadow work as like as a YouTube topic? You mentioned reigniting your spark or purpose if you've been feeling stuck. Can you speak more to how you begin making space for that? Yeah, I mean that's a it's a big and broad question. So one of the things that sometimes we need to start with is exactly where we're at, right? So sometimes just fully accepting, I do feel stuck and I do feel limited, and perhaps that's been having me feel down, depressed, apathetic. Just sort of fully acknowledging that, and sort of it's almost like having yourself more fully. I think it's a good place to start. I mean, the energy of ignition is like it's fire, right? So sometimes we look at, well, where's the fire in your life? What are you passionate about now? Or even in the inverse, right? What are you engaged in that you're clearly not passionate about? And obviously, life is sometimes things that we're not passionate about, right? Life includes all sorts of admin and tax and bills and all the stuff of life. But in terms of like major life force, if you've got major life force ongoingly going to stuff that you're not passionate about, for most of us there's going to be a cost to that, right? So sometimes it's a subtraction game. Sometimes it's noticing that what happens when you start to feel inspired, where actually is your attention going? So for some of us it goes towards comfort or routines or other people or caretaking or caregiving. So some of this is it can be a reclaiming of energy. So, if I were working with someone, I'd be encouraging an inventory of their life to understand what's currently in their life. What of that is part of their sort of authentic way of being, and what isn't. We often talk about how your friendships and relationships, are they supporting what you're passionate about? Are they supporting what's I use the language of essence, what's in your essence? Sometimes they're not, and that's okay, but it may mean that you need to shift the optimal distance of certain people in your life so that there is a bit more space for what is new and what is expressive and creative and alive for you. I'm quite a fan of people getting embodied about that. What actually has you. I've had clients dance themselves and meditate themselves and just move their bodies into a more creative way of being. Sometimes even the possibility of something new. I can experience times in my own life where I felt sort of full enough or maxed enough that someone might say, well, you should read this book, right? Or you should take this supplement, or you should do this thing. And it's sort of like, wow, I'm so maxed. I don't just a new thing is almost too much, right? It's like I don't even know if I'm going to have the time or energy to deal with that. So again, that's where a kind of an inventory can be useful. And there are cycles. It's not the job of the coach is not to artificially manufacture summer when it's winter, right? But the job of the coach is to notice if spring is emerging, and to support that emergence. So sometimes it's acceptance, and sometimes it's reimagining and reinvigorating your life. And there might be possibilities. If you're stuck enough in a rut or routine, you might not even see certain possibilities for your life, right? And so that's where coaching can be helpful, just to put things on your radar that you may not be in touch with, and your current set of circumstances, right? Your work colleagues, your friendships, they may not be putting that on your radar either. So. Okay, thanks for the YouTube video on choosing unavailable men. Seems to be my pattern. Yeah, you're welcome. I hope that was helpful. There are also other videos that I have done on that, particularly in the early days of the channel. I think I did one that got quite a good response, so you might want to check that out. That would be like 2019. So more Clay and Dr. John Gray. Yeah, right on. Yeah, I've never spoken with him. I actually went to see John Gray. Gosh. A mere 12 years ago, more than that probably, when he came to London. I enjoyed him. I know he's done some stuff. Michelle Marchant Johnson, who I've spoken at her conferences before, her virtual conferences. I know she's done a lot with him. So yeah, that's noted. Dr. John Gray, yay. Greetings to Mr. B, to all from London, England. Thank you. How is that great city? Elliot Scott. Yeah, I've actually had very little overlap with Elliot Scott. I know he's in the dating world. Yeah, thanks for the suggestion. Wendy, hi, welcome. Shishi, hi. Audra, hi. Let me know if you've just joined us. Welcome. Let me know if you've got a question. I'm also here letting people know that I've got some openings. I'm opening a new cycle for coaching. If you're interested in one-on-one work, there's a link beneath this video. You can check it out. Hey guys, please hit the like button. Thanks, that's my unconscious talking. I appreciate the support. Someone else mentioning Elliot Scott. I'm also just inviting people to let me know. I'm going to be hoping to do more collaborations down the line, and I'm asking you, who would you like to see me in conversation with, or who would you like to bring on the channel? Who do you think would be a good complement and or difference? Julia's in Cheshire, welcome. Thanks for being here. And while we're here, if you have a question that relates to coaching and or just something going on in your life, I would like to hear about it. I'm curious about your experience of cultural polarization, because it sort of comes up a lot, and it comes up a lot on YouTube, right? When I watch a certain amount of YouTube, when I go on, I'm seeing such kind of partisanship, right, between people who are much more keen on promoting and including the trans community and trans rights, and really, I think in a marvelous way, pushing that forward. I remember thinking back in 2014, sort of seeing some of the early emergences of a much greater activism, at least amongst people I knew in the trans community. And I was kind of excited for that. I was like, wow, this is going to be the next, great frontier of human rights. We're in postmodernism, and what postmodernism does better than anything else is it tries to include everyone. And isn't that a beautiful thing, right? To particularly for people who have, either been systemically excluded or who have never felt included in a majority dialogue. So isn't that great? And then I'm also seeing on YouTube like huge numbers of people who are concerned about the ability to call one thing, and to that almost like the foundation of Western civilization somehow. And this is not my phrase, but this is what I'm picking up, is sort of under attack, because we can no longer say A is A and B is B, and make sense of the world in the old ways. And I realize that whenever we're making sense in new ways that invites us to be more nuanced and sensitive, which I hold up as good things, there's an adjustment period, right? And so sometimes there's a pushback to that adjustment period. But I think this is also getting at the fundamental question of how do you make truth in the world? What do you understand to be true? Is there such a thing as personal truth and subjective truth, which I happen to have experienced myself, and I've lived a lot in communities where it's understood that you have your truth and I have my truth, right? On this channel, we even talk about that a lot, right? Like, what's your experience? What's my experience? They can be two different things, and that's a hard but beautiful part of trying to relate with different people, is that we might be doing the same thing, and I don't know, you're eating McDonald's and you're enjoying it, and I'm eating McDonald's and I'm not, right? But that's a gross example of something that's going to, at a much more micro level, we might have a very hard time telling the same story about the same exact experience. But then if that goes into, oh, now I can't trust you because I don't even think you're telling the truth, or let's just say I don't even have any ability to talk about subjective truth, because for me, truth is scientific or it's in an authoritative text. And neither of those things is about how you feel, right? And so you get this whole like, well, the facts don't care about your feelings. So I'm sort of looking at this. To me, it makes sense. These are just different ways of talking about truth. But that in itself is a developmental achievement that most of you listening to this right now probably get, because that's kind of part of how we roll in this community. But that's not a universal. And I don't see too many people talking about it in that way. So anyway, I'm curious about your experiences. Does this worry you, or do you find yourself feeling like there's a level of cultural inflammation that is scary to you? Where do you most come into contact with that? I'm curious. All right, let me dive back in. Thanks for these comments here. What do you think of Greta B? I'm probably going to butcher that. She's very strict, but has interesting views about how to be a high value woman. So I don't really know her work. The name rings a bell. I believe, yeah. Is she Swedish? I mean, Greta. Okay. Yeah. Maybe I should just say I could check it out. I I will say this. So I have a video called 4 Ways to Be a High Value Woman. I released in fall of 2020, and it got some good feedback. And I have a sort of like a bonus fifth thing. If you've not watched it, check it out, because I basically tend to have a little bit of a countercultural view when it comes to this language of high value than most dating coaches on YouTube, at least. And it's sort of something like, I think there's a graduation from high and low value where you actually care a little bit less, right? So if you've done the work to build your esteem, build your worth, there's ultimately a step where you no longer see it as like a contingent thing, where it's not like, oh, I did this, so I'm a high value woman, or if I'm a high value woman or man, I do these things. It's sort of more like I'm good with myself, and that stuff isn't really up for grabs. So I actually step off the hamster wheel of low and high worth to this sort of other thing. Almost to me, it seems a bit like Rumi, right? Rumi said, I'll meet you in the field beyond right and wrong. I've, over time, been more in high value is the answer to low value, but the answer to high value is to meet you in the field beyond high and low value. That might sound cryptic if that doesn't make sense, but I'm saying that in earnest, right? Because I see a lot of people who they're so at pains to be high value, but it gives them another set of issues, right? And it can sometimes give you a set of issues to do with identity and self-image, and where those things are concretized, and therefore, spiritually speaking, it's the point that you get stuck, because you're likely to be wanting to defend your image or live up to your image or have other people see you, right? So let's say I'm a high value man, quote, and now people don't see me that way. Is that an issue? Or is that actually, they just don't get me? How much time and energy do I give that? For me to be high value, right? It's a sort of one-up position, right? So oftentimes people that talk a lot about being high value, it sometimes comes from their hero persona, and that's fine. We all have a hero persona, but also on our spiritual journey, we want to relax and put down our personas, at least certainly the ones that we're unconscious to. Superior begets inferior, right? So meaning and you might say, well, true high value isn't that. It's just to be the best that I can be. And that's great, be the best that you can be. And certainly I wouldn't wish low self-esteem on anyone, right? And we all can vary at times with how much self-esteem we have. Better to have, well, there's a few nuances to that, but I'm not going to go into that here. Better to have higher self-esteem. And there might be a certain point in time where the question of your value isn't really up for you, and that's almost the place that I would like to encourage people to get to. Hey, Stacy in California, collabs with Authentic Relating. Okay, so who? Because I know some of that community. I'm curious who you see or what channel that is. Esther Perel, yeah, I'd love to chat with her. I really appreciate her stuff. NVC as it relates to conscious relationships. Yeah, right on. How can I be more resilient to rejection? Yeah. Well, one way is to not be hard on yourself, right? So meaning when you have the experience of rejection, to not tell yourself like you shouldn't be having that experience, right? So as simplistic as that sounds, we're basically going to say when we're having this experience called I feel rejected, I'm not going to reject myself. Right? Because a huge issue for any of us that fear rejection is this part. This part is I reject myself, or sometimes I reject other people because I fear they're going to reject me, or I don't want to feel a certain thing, so I kind of move into rejection, or I move into feeling rejected, so I don't have to feel a certain thing. So sometimes the way out of rejection is to acknowledge, yeah, there are difficult and sometimes kind of crappy experiences, but I'm going to do my best to feel it. But I'm also going to do my best to learn how not to add too much secondary experience, kind of meaning my judgment of my rejection, my shame of my rejection, or, I shouldn't be feeling this. So we kind of say, well, let's start with what you are experiencing. And then the skill is to notice, are there frames or perspectives that you're in, right? Which is sort of, I'm I'm reaching for my glasses, but they're over there. Oh, here's some I prepared earlier. Yeah, right. Like, are there ways that I'm experiencing reality? Are they ways that I'm looking through at reality that are having me experience rejection? And those are things that you can unroot, right? So we call those, limiting beliefs or self-limiting beliefs, or it could just be the weight of past experience that we still get kind of caught up in. So I feel rejection in the moment, but I'm actually eating a ton of memories, right? I'm actually remembering, maybe somatically, emotionally, all these other times that I felt rejection, and perhaps the times that really hurt, right? Where maybe it was like an early love relationship, or maybe it was mom or dad, or both of them, or a sibling, or, So as much as possible, we try and clean it up by keeping it in the now, even if the now is hard and terrible, but we don't want to add to it where possible by unconsciously picking up the past rejections and kind of replaying them here. Now, sometimes that might have power over you that you don't fully yet have power back over it, but even just sort of noticing that and getting curious and slowing yourself down, right? This is the counterintuitive move. When we feel things we don't like, we tend to want to speed up. We tend to, mentalize. We tend to have imagined conversations. We tend to kind of go at it mentally, and maybe we start like the heart rate's going up, and so everything is moving faster. But if you can learn how to slow it down, take a few more breaths, and metabolize more of your experience, that might be helpful to actually getting you a little bit closer to it, and in a way not having to fear it so much. Sometimes, in my experience, people who have a strong fear of rejection, they have an unreasonable standard for rejection that other people sort of wouldn't recognize as rejection, right? Sort of meaning, they connect with someone on a dating app, they say hello, and the other person doesn't say hello back, and they experience that as a real strong rejection, right? And a lot of people might have that experience, and maybe for them it's like nothing ever really started, so it's not really rejection, or I've called up the cinema and they haven't got any seats, that's disappointing, but it's not really rejection, right? So none of this is to disavow the actual experience you're having, because I'm all about you having the experience you're having. Start there. But you might start to notice there's ways that you're sort of easily rejected because it's a frame that you hold very strongly on your experiences. Almost to the extreme, it could be like you're living and waiting for the next rejection, right? And that's something that you can learn to relax. That's awareness is curative in that instance. The more that you can be aware that you're orienting that way, the more that you can be aware that there's a tendency for you to dualize the world a little bit into, I'm rejected, someone else is rejecting me. You can flip that, right? You could practice being the rejector. If you often feel rejected, what's it like for you to actually practice? I mean, you don't need to, go overboard with this, but just if for you rejection is someone else naming the frame, or someone else suggesting the time to get together, or what's it like for you to basically take the leadership in that stuff, and just to see, can you flip that script a little bit and be on the other side? If we're habitually magnetized to one end of a polarity, often the way out is to experience the other end of it, right? Even if you don't want to get stuck at the other end, it's just, it's a bit like tissues in the body, right? What we don't want is that they concretize. We don't want them to get stagnant. What we want typically is movement. Movement, dynamism is usually on the road to recovery. So anywhere that you can get dynamism, even if it's like, okay, well now I'm gonna flip the script. Here's the things that I see people who are rejectors. They do these kinds of things. Is there a loving or a socially acceptable to me version of that I could do? Right? Maybe they're strong. Maybe they are self-interested, maybe they stand up for themselves, right? You fill in the blanks, is to start to practice some of the things, because this is like a reclaiming the shadow sort of move, right? I'm going to do the things that I typically reject, even if it's subtly and unconsciously, because I don't want to be associated with that, right? I don't want to be associated with being strong or dominant or rejecting or cruel or unkind or you fill in the blanks of anything that you would typically associate with someone who you would deem to be easily rejecting of other people. Now, in order to do that, you might have to relax your own self-image. That's why it's kind of hard, right? You might have to look at yourself a little bit differently. The self-image that people who feel rejection often have to put down is, I'm a kind, loving person. And why don't we just for a little bit as an experiment practice, I'm a person, right? I'm a person who has, kindness and love, but who also maybe sometimes micro rejects people, or maybe sometimes has difficult feelings. Maybe I feel some love, but if I also tap in, I also feel some discontent, or I feel some resentment, right? So a good way of getting over rejection is actually to contact your resentments, right? To basically be true to them. Not that you have to act them out on other people, but just that you notice, I actually am resentful. So a truer self-image in this moment is not just I'm kind and loving and a bunch of stuff I'm rejecting. I'm kind and loving and I feel resentful. Right, so we're basically encouraging a little bit more of a self-honesty of the totality of your experience. And from that place, other people sometimes seem a little less rejecting because you're including the parts of you that might also be rejecting, right? I mean, this is sort of like the ultimate personal growth move. And it's not always easy, and I'm not always good at it, right? So I'm in this with you. I'm not just saying this as like from the mountaintop. I'm saying, I'm walking up the mountain as well, and sometimes it's hard. But when I can look at someone's behavior that I don't like and look back in myself, not in a low self-esteem way, but just in a kind of brutally honest way and say, okay, yeah, maybe if I had that set of experiences, I would do that same thing. Or, you know what? Yeah, you're being snide. I was snide last night just to the person at Starbucks who didn't serve me quick enough, or whatever the thing is, then we start to open up a little bit more territory, and we're less afraid of the incoming experiences from other people. We may still be impacted, but I'm sort of opening up your inquiry around what rejection really is. You might be in certain situations not being rejecting because you've got such a strong magnetism to being kind and of service. And in some ways, that's a beautiful thing, And in some ways, the growth and development there can be to put that down for a bit and acknowledge more of your authentic desires, right? If I say to you, do you want to go for a cup of coffee? Of course, part of me would want you to say yes. But maybe another part, and maybe over time, an even bigger part, I want to know what's true for you. And if you're only going for coffee because you're worried that I wouldn't like to hear the answer that you don't want to go for coffee with me, I'm less interested in that, right? I'm a little more interested in let's go for coffee when there's a mutuality there, right? And so you can take that whole approach into dating, into work relationships, the whole thing really, right? Like if work is rejecting you because they no longer want to employ you, right? Obviously there could be some very difficult real world consequences of that, but it may also be an opening for you to find a resonance with a different employer that's actually truer to you and truer to them. If a guy doesn't want to take you on another date, that might be difficult to hear, but actually it might also create opportunities for there to be more resonance with someone else. And you might be in the situation where you're like, I actually have more value for him being truthful in that situation than the sting that maybe I get just kind of receiving that, And sometimes it's also good to not get what you want, right? Like I think there's sometimes an assumption, and particularly in the personal growth world, right? The law of attraction, other things, that you should be able to manifest what you want, right? And I'm not sure that you and I are in charge ultimately, right? I don't even mean that in any particular, spiritual way of looking at reality. Just clearly there's stuff going on in the world that is beyond us, or certainly is beyond us at an individual level, So I hope that's helpful. You probably didn't think I was going to go on riff that far. We got a bit out there, but that's where I'd start with that. It's a great topic. Also realizing, your fear of rejection might be your salvation. It might be your enlightenment. Anything that gets your attention enough that's difficult. Of course, part of us wants the pill, right? Part of us wants the not to feel that. But it can also be the opening into asking deeper questions, right? Like, what if fear of rejection was your pre-incarnation contract? Now, I'm talking way above my pay grade here. I don't know what I'm talking about at one level, but it's okay sometimes as a coach to imagine if, right? Imagine if it were true that you signed up for an experience of rejection because it was going to teach you something about how to integrate truth and harmony in your life. and you came in more on the harmony side, right? So you're more on the kind, loving, gentle way of doing reality. And actually life is gonna mature you by saying, we want more truth from you. You can still talk lovingly, but we actually want you to be true to yourself, right? So where do you delude yourself? Where do you maximize yourself? Where do you minimize yourself? Where do you carry an image or persona that's not true? Where do you still attach to the past? Where do you tell yourself life hasn't been fair to you when maybe you wouldn't even fully know that, right? Maybe that's above your pay grade to even know in some ways. What if, right? What if rejection is actually at the core of your life? Because in order to accept yourself more fully, you have to go through a certain kind of experience of rejection. And also it will make you incredibly compassionate, obviously, to other people's experiences of rejection. That bit has probably already happened for you if this is enough of a theme. So there's a lot in this. And the other thing I'll say, just in a gross generalization, most people I know for whom this is a really strong theme, they are naturally energetically forward, right? So they are naturally, what we call like heart on your sleeve, right? Sort of like emotional, people-oriented, and they tend to move quickly. That's my experience. Now, I'm not just saying these critically, like, emotional, people-oriented. These things can be applied to me. Quick, maybe I'm mentally quick, but I actually process things pretty slow. So if that's true, any of that for you, you might notice, so you might say, well, what's it like for you to be more this kind of person, right? Who's a little slower to be emotional, right? Who's going to practice being more logical, who's going to practice being rational, who's going to practice taking on multiple perspectives, who's going to return text messages more slowly, who's going to take more time to metabolize, right? If there were a buffet, instead of being the person that, and I've been this person, so again, none of this is me standing in judgment, right? I used to have a real issue. Oh my gosh, all you can eat buffets. I mean, when I was at university, Pizza Hut, I'm not that old, Pizza Hut was around. Pizza Hut used to do all you can eat, right? And this was £5 British, right? And that was a lot of money in those days. Maybe it still is, but you could get as much as you wanted. All the salads, all the pastas, all the pizzas, and we would compete on who could have the most pizza slices. And we would time it so that we only had to go once, right? So you don't have breakfast, you go for lunch, and then you feel so bad that you don't even, dinner would just make you sick anyway. My point being, all you can eat buffets. You could go to an all you eat buffet, right? And you could be the first person there and and trying everything, right? Or you could actually take a little bit more of a slow. What about if I go up once every half an hour and try something? Clayton Olson, you cannot bully me on the basis of my Enneagram type. We've talked about this, okay? I know that you wanted to be a 7, and I told you in another life you probably were, but in this life you have not got the 7 chance, and I have. So you be careful. I'm trying to focus here. This is hard for a 7. The point is, you may be used to very quickly having an emotional experience to something, right? And I'm not making that wrong. I'm just saying, let's put another thing on your menu called being slower to rouse, right? Now, there's other people that would benefit from your approach, right? They are almost emotionally, we'd say almost too distant from life, right? They keep everything far away so they don't really have to feel much. But you may be someone that feels a lot and you feel it quickly. So I'm saying, what's it like just to breathe, slow it down, notice if your mind is spinning out, notice if you're panicking, right? And learning how to do that self-regulation. Now that's profound work. That might take years to do that, but let's start that. That's meaningful work. And it might just offer you a slightly different perspective where previously you maybe would have been like, oh, I'm being rejected, and suddenly like everything's taken over and it's running out on a familiar pattern. You might notice, like I feel impacted, but I'm actually sort of okay, and I can be with this, and I breathe into it, and maybe within a minute or two, maybe that's actually passed, whereas historically it would have been the, you know how they do in the movies, right? Terrible thing, action movies that I sometimes watch, right? If they're gonna set something alight, you're gonna see the fuse burning down, right, before the dynamite or the explosion. So we're actually offering you the possibility of a longer fuse and one that burns more slowly. That's the kind of the metaphor for this. So again, there's huge opportunities in this. All right, let's get back into some questions. By the way, if you've just joined us, welcome. I'm live. If you joined us after the event, thank you also for being here. I am taking some questions. I'm also letting you know there's a link beneath this video if you are interested in coaching, if you're interested in one-to-one support, or if you're interested in your own transformation, because transformational coaching is the essence of my coaching. It's helping you be more of who you really are. A lot of that is letting go of some things, right? So if you want support, letting go of an outdated way of being, of an expression or work in the world that's no longer true to you, of a connection or relationship that's not true to you, or you're struggling to be over it or let it go. That's all stuff that I would love to be in conversation with you about. So just click that link. It will give you more information and you can make an application. It does not commit you to anything, but it does open up the opportunity of coaching with me in this cycle. This is the first time I've opened coaching in 2022. So let's do it. Angela, thanks for the super chat. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thanks for supporting the channel. And thank you for the question. I hope that helped. AD says, I often date younger men and other coaches say they won't commit, but I know several couples with 10-year age gaps. Is this a fluke and should I worry? I don't think you should worry. You know, life doesn't just happen in the generalizations, right? So I always want to say this to people, and it can sound a little rich, right? Coming from someone who helps people, hopefully, through the information and ideas that they convey on YouTube. But really, you know, I'm here and you're here, right? Meaning your intuition and your guidance and your true conversation with yourself will always trump anything that I or anyone else can really give you in the general. Now, it might be if we're working one-on-one, there's some specific things in your situation that I can see, or that having been with a number of people who have somewhat similar situations, I might be like, yeah, I have a lot of curiosity about this. And even in that situation, you know, I'm still going to honor your knowing, because there'll be things that you know about your experience that you're on the inside of that, you know, only you know in a certain way. So I wouldn't be worried about rules. I'd be more worried about your true guidance in any situation. So if you're noticing that that's true for you, that let's say you've been in a number of relationships with younger guys and none of them commits, and it's sort of it could ends a similar way, or there's a similar dynamic or similar sort of things that get said, then yeah, let's use that to stimulate your curiosity and your inquiry. But no, I mean, even in my family, I can say there's, people who've got big age gaps and it works. I did make a video on this. You should check it out if you haven't. I made it in February 2020. And do age gaps matter? And the basic view that I take in that video is stage is more important often than age. So if you're ready to retire, you might be at different ages, but if both of you are moving into that kind of stage of life, that might be a good fit, right? If for one of you you're ready to retire and the other has still got 25 years of full-time work, that might be a little difficult, But ultimately, at its deepest level, most of us are looking for a connection that can, be at a soul or heart kind of level, and that doesn't always have to do with age. Now, it's good to just bring in the pragmatic lens at times and just sort of say, well, if I'm saying that I want to retire, or if I'm saying that I want a family, or if I'm saying I want to run a business with someone, like, are these guys that I'm connecting with, are they likely to be that? So if you're someone who's more comfortable in life in possibility, right? This is, again, is polarity. If you're in possibility, what's it like to be in necessity, right? With realism, I know, I'm getting Enneagram bullied here. I for a long time, possibility was really easy to me, and it was hard sometimes just to be in the brass tacks of reality and the limitations of it, right? But you get so much from being with those limitations in a real way, not self-critical, just sober. But there's often a mystery as well to who we're connected to and why and what that's about. So I would just say honor yourself, right? The thing to be on the lookout for is that there would be some unconscious way that we are attracting something that could not stabilize as a committed relationship. because in some ways then we don't, it's a sort of form of unavailable guy, right? So that would be the thing. But you can look at that with curiosity and say, well, is that true for me? Sometimes people just say, you know what, like I generally just have a better connection with younger guys, right? Or I'm like a super energetic 65-year-old and I find that younger guys, I just, it's like I can hike mountains and they can hike mountains, and that's the thing, right? So pragmatism is also, whatever works for you. And I don't believe in trying to, fulfill other people's expectations in your romantic relationship. I think it's for you and for other people to support you. And it's a skill, right? To be able to look at a guy, and even as a guy, right? It's a skill to be able to try and do this. I try and do this for myself. It's like, what am I actually available for? And what stage of life am I in right now? I am in a growth phase. Am I building? Am I transforming, right? Because if a guy's transforming, he's probably going to be rearranging, right? So that's a harder place for him to move into some kind of commitment. So just that objectivity, which is hard if you're falling in love with someone, right? So sometimes you want to do it before you know someone so well that maybe you, or let's say that you have strong enough feelings that it's harder to see them clearly, or you can get other people's reflection. Do you think this guy is likely to want to move into commitment? And that's almost less in some ways about what specifically he says. That's part of it. But I'm talking about looking at the gestalt of his life, looking at the overall of his life and just sort of noticing, how grounded is he? How grounded in a purpose? How grounded in a geography? How grounded in a set of life commitments? All those things, I think you might get a sense, oh yeah, so it makes sense to want to move into committed relationship. Whereas if a lot of the, he's not sure where he's making his money, how he's supporting himself, what he's doing in the world, who he is. And we all have times where those things won't be clear. So again, this is not judgment. This is just objective reality and trying to look at it as objectively as you can. Alrighty, thanks for being here. A few more of you have joined us. We are live here taking questions. Thanks also if you're joining us after the event. And if you are in either of those camps, check the link beneath the video. I'm letting people know about opening for coaching for this cycle. I just have a few client openings if you want to work with me one-on-one. Lise is in Montreal. Hello, welcome. Clayton Olson is with us. Thanks for joining us, Clayton. You were getting talked about earlier. Actually, maybe some people tagged you because I was saying we got to get Clayton, got to get some buy-in, got to get this guy back on the channel. Talking about obligation versus desire. We're going to get it done. Sarah and S. Jason Diggs. Okay, great. Yeah, I know those guys. Hello from Dallas, Sharon. Welcome. Love listening to you. Thank you. Julia's got a question. My son is 19 and recently finished his 2-year relationship. I suggest John Gray's book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. I said it'll help him to navigate his next relationships, right? Well, I know very little about your son's situation. I will just say I think that's a really interesting book, and I think he'd be lucky to have the possibility to engage with that. And then I would just see whether it's the right kind of time from him. There were always, and this is a thing about coaching, right? I've had this with people. Everything's kind of going swimmingly in their lives, and then suddenly there's an opening for coaching because there's a breakdown in their reality, right? Their way of being, right? Whether it's like they've been a performer and now they've got to the end of the performance and they're starting to realize, oh, actually there's like some inauthenticity that I didn't even realize, right? Or maybe someone's been in, committed partnership for 15 years and it's come to an end and now they've got to like rediscover who they are or what's next for them, or even how to like live and fend for themselves on their own, so often there's an opening for coaching. You might notice in your life right now, there may be no opening for coaching. You might be pretty good on most fronts and nothing is really ready to transform. It's actually just more of a continue along the path kind of time. You may find right now there's an opening for coaching because something new wants to come through and emerge in your life. So I'm just saying that because I think books can also be a little similar, right? When the student's ready, the teacher appears, and I think it's a similar thing with books. So I think you can give people books. It's great to have great books on the bookshelf, right? So whether you read them now or in the time that it's right for you, they'll be there. Coffee's on me. Awesome. Thanks, Angela. Linda, welcome. Jack's coaching is life-changing. I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been good to work with you. Thanks. Yeah, right on. Hello, Jack. Going through a season of attracting past flames and wondering what's that about. Yes. Sometimes that can be about receiving the lessons from those things. That could be the kind of thing that if you wanted to, you go to someone that does readings and see if there's any, sort of deeper context they can put on it. Sometimes a connection ends, but not at a time where it's super easy for you to like metabolize everything about it, right? It's not always that, a relationship ends and life says, hey, God, I noticed that relationship ended. That must have been kind of hard. We're going to go prepay the next 6 months of expenses so you can kind of sit on the cushion and kind of learn what that was all about, right? So oftentimes we're in the thick of life. Life keeps coming. So I think there are these just times where we get to review, and that's one way of looking at what you're talking about. Now, whether that means there's something unfinished in a connection, I guess that might be the question you're having, right? Is there anything to pursue here or to... I don't really have hard and fast about that, I guess generally I'm a fan of getting things to completion where that's available, right? And if that means, another go round together, or if it means deeper conversation, or if it means getting coaching or therapy support to let something go. I'm not a fan of, where possible, having to kind of live with, sort of adjacent realities that then take you out of presence of your own life, But you don't always get to control that, right? Sometimes there are circumstances where a relationship couldn't constellate because of you were co-workers, it wasn't appropriate because of geographies or illnesses or, life, right? So I think there can sort of paradoxically be a thing that you can say, well, let's say there's someone that comes back around, but it's not actually an old flame. It's just someone you had, feelings for, but it wasn't available at that time. Sometimes life will constellate the opportunity for that to happen in a different cycle, so that can sometimes be a comfort, just being open to that possibility. It's not guaranteed, but it's just sort of, it's a perspective that, as I like to sometimes do, right? We kind of chuck it upstairs, meaning, we turn it over to life, the universe, source, however you think of that, God, to say, okay, like you show me, like if you want me to have this person in my life, like you bring it back in a different cycle, or let it be known, or maybe there's another cycle where the thing that you thought was a deal breaker, actually now it isn't a deal breaker, and you can proceed to be in relationship or connection. Nostalgia is a funny thing, right? Nostalgia can be a beautiful thing. Nostalgia can also be a loss of presence. So if you're noticing that you're constantly wandering back into previous relationships, it can just be sort of useful to notice, is this a sort of true impulse in this cycle for me to look at it? And sometimes absolutely it is, right? It's almost like your consciousness is doing another pass over things. So yeah, I think life seems to just offer different windows of opportunities at different times. So take this as a window of opportunity. Is there anything that was unsaid? Is there anything that was unclear? Is there any way that you want to make authentic what wasn't authentic, or process what hasn't been processed? I would sort of default, I think, to imagining it might be more about the sort of the inquiry, the excavation, than necessarily that something else is getting kicked back up, unless you're really getting that guidance that, like, yeah, something changed. I mean, when I speak to people who go around a second time with someone, who reconnect a relationship, normally something has to be different for it to be different, right? And you're like, thanks, Jack. I get that they pay you the big bucks to say something has to be different for something to be different. But I mean something substantive, right? Which is normally a structural thing, right? Like the previous time the person was like partnered and now they're not partnered, right? Or a structural thing like it was going to be, you know, bi-coastal and now you actually live in the same part of town, right? Or they were heavily involved, you were heavily involved like caretaking someone, and so really that was like the primary energy of your life. You couldn't give it to a partner, now you can. So something structural, or something that is more like a realization of self. So you realize, wow, I always treated this guy like an option, and like he was kind of like the nice guy, and I kept going for like the bad guys, so to speak, because they were more arresting to me sexually, something like this. But actually I kind of realized like this guy just was always showing up for me, and I took that for granted, and now I really realize the value of it. And so you're actually kind of making an apology, or making like there's a different orientation to the person, right? Or maybe in the previous relationship you showed up really well and the guy was kind of like lax, and actually he's done some soul searching and gone to therapy or got a coach or been part of men's work or done something where he's like, actually, yeah, I'm sorry, like I was, you know, even when that happens, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's good to go, right? That's just like a new opening to see, you know? So there is also something in my experience about just the formative energy of relationships, like that the way that they start is often an important indication of where they can go. But that's not a hard and fast, right? Again, this is your discernment about your life. And the other thing I would just say is, if it's occurring to you kind of as heavy, right? Because you're like being nostalgic or processing stuff or refeeling stuff or stuff you didn't get to feel, you know, also just be kind and light to yourself at the same time, right? Sometimes there's you need to hit the journal for an hour, get some stuff out, and then it's, go the happy hour, go watch some comedy or do something that kind of fills you up as well. So those are all conjectures in a way, and I'm also curious, what's your experience? What are you noticing? White Rose Angel, happy Friday all. Thank you to you too. Authentic self and searching love, wanting a partnership. I'm not quite sure what that related to. I like the words there. Let me know if I missed something. Give Jack some thumbs up. Yes, give Jack some thumbs up. Thanks. Did a little. Hi, Jack. So happy to catch you live. Is refusing to be exclusive after 4 dates in less than a month reasonable or a red flag? He wants a slow burn rather than rush into things. He's on holiday for 3 weeks now. General orientations, I would say if you had the option slow burn and rush into things, definitely a fan of slow burn. So I think slow is generally good. And if something is likely to go somewhere, I don't think slow prevents that. Unless it's actually that you can't be with the slow and the patience, right? So in a sense, your impatience kind of does something to, disrupt the connection. So, I mean, I'm interested in the language of this, right? Because we're already on a playing field that ideally I wouldn't want you on, meaning what you really want is the guy wants to be exclusive, right? So you're talking about him refusing to be exclusive. So I'm curious about that. Like the ideal progression for this, where it's available, I think, is that the guy is actually saying to you, hey, like, I want you to be my girlfriend. I want to be exclusive with you. So I'm curious how this conversation's unfolded. It seems, the way I'm noticing it, imagine maybe you were the one that put that on the table, or it somehow got put on the table, and then he's saying he's not ready for it. I'd be a little curious about that, like whether there's a prematurity there, or so it doesn't occur to me that when you've known someone less than a month and 4 dates, that quote refusing to be exclusive is a red flag. That doesn't seem to me a huge amount of time to know someone. We do often live in paradigms now where people are quite comfortable, multiply dating and getting to know different people. But even if that weren't the case, it's different people move in different ways, but that in itself doesn't concern me. I'm a little more curious about how that sort of dynamic is going down. Now, it could be that for you, this kind of guy isn't actually going to be the right kind of fit. That's that's possible, but in and of itself, I don't see that needs to be clarified. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to be physical with anyone that's not willing to be exclusive with you. I'm absolutely not saying that. I'm just kind of saying, well, let's let's actually see what's true, because if you don't get that guy getting to the point where he's wanting it and initiating it from his side, that could also just be the real deal breaker, right? You could say, I don't really want to be with a guy who doesn't want to have exclusivity with me. It's not like exclusivity is something that should be this huge burden on a guy to sort of give up. I think there's normally a sense that actually I want something with you, and so that's what I'm focused on and prioritizing. And it's not about, should it be unreasonably withheld or something like that. That's almost like a secondary pitch that I would rather the conversation came from the first pitch. Alrighty, we're going to be wrapping up here shortly. If you have a question, get it in now. If you are interested in coaching, hit that link below. If you're not interested in coaching, what's going on? No, hit the like button. Let me see if we can get this word out to someone that is. Ghosting me again, 6-year long distance relationship, heavy sigh. I like completion and closure too. What do you think, Jack? I mean, 6 years long distance, I'm just going to say, like, my heart goes out to you in that, even from way, way shorter experiences of long distance in the past. I always found long distance a hard thing. And yeah, so I'm curious if that's like an authentic thing for you. I'm generally in the fandom of, we've got to be moving this towards the possibility of it not being long distance. Even if that means we're going to be spending a lot of money that we don't want to have to spend on transport, or if it means, someone's going to be doing some remote working back and forth, or we're doing some meeting halfway, or we're both going to coincide our holidays, or, and the stakes are higher. That's just it. Like, it's like the stakes are higher, meaning people have got to put more attention in than they would normally, right? So just sort of setting that context. So now, if we're going to be in long distance and now you're ghosting me and we've been connected for 6 years, that doesn't sound viable to me. Now, we may not have shared reality about what ghosting is, right? But maybe you do. And if you were to have shared reality with this person about that, then I'm sort of curious what's actually going on there, and I'm wondering if, for both of you, you may actually want to be in the conversation about, is there something else that might be more fulfilling and progressible? That's a long time. Yeah, I think that's what I want to say about that. Thank you for answering on the flames, Jack. I'm noticing I'm experiencing more awareness this time round and far more aware of how they make me feel versus how I feel about each of them. That's good. Right on. Keep that up. Could you say a few words about your coaching program? What should one expect if they work with you? Yeah. So all my coaching is a British word I use, bespoke, right? In American speak, that's customized, meaning the themes of work that we engage on come from our Discovery Call conversation. So if you click that link, it takes you through, and it gives you maybe 7 or 8 pointers about how I tend to work with people, the sorts of things. But I'll work with people on anything that there's resonance to work on, right? So you fill in the application. If I think there's a chance that it could be a good fit for coaching, I'll set up a time to speak with you on the phone. We'll get on the phone, and my main aim in that call is to understand your current situation, what's going on, and what is it that would entail your transformation, right? Where is it that you really want to get to? Now, sometimes the place we sort of think we want to get to, when we unpack it more, there's actually deeper territory and ideas there. But that's my job as coach, is to help get clear on, okay, what's like the developmental work for you to do now. So by the end of that call, I can let you know, I think this is a good fit for coaching. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. And, I'm not trying to force it, and I don't need you to force it. But if it is, I'm going to be able to reflect back to you. If we were to coach together, here are the 2, 3, or 4 themes of work that stand out to me that would really help you. So it might be we're looking at relaxing your inner critic. It might be that you are in a connection that you need to let go of, and we need to do the work around letting go and healing, and the sobriety of not continuing to kind of imagine that something else is going to be true. It might be that you are a little dead to yourself, and that we're going to work on your aliveness. So a coaching engagement typically runs somewhere between 3 and 6 months. And during that time, we're going to get together multiple times a month for our conversations. And I'm also going to have you engaging in practices and assignments. I'm going to have you doing some things in the world that help you explore new ways of being. So it's not just what happens in the call. And then depending on how we structure the package, sometimes there's an ongoing WhatsApp thread that we have between us, so that we can deepen the work, so that you can check in with me. I can know how things are landing with you. It's a way of keeping a little bit more of a continual conversation. So that's sort of the structure of it. The gross theme is moving more into your authentic self. That's really my desire, my sweet spot. As I say, a big part of that is sometimes it's letting go of things. We may look at personas. I mean, there's lots of frameworks and teachings that I can bring to the table. My job is to select those for what it is that we're working with. I tend to work with people in quite an organic and intuitive way. I check with people that they have capacity to work, capacity to do inner work. And what I mean by that is, if we're going to look at inviting a new way of being in you, that takes time, but it also can mean that some things in your life are going to rearrange. So my aim when I coach with people is not that they're trying to shovel the coaching into like a super scheduled day where they're back to back with other things. It's that there's actually at least some point in their week where there's the time to be with this kind of work, right? To metabolize it. But again, all of that is my job, really, right? It's my job to work out, is there the capacity to work? Do we need to look at your commitments and your commitment inventory? Do we need to get some things out of your life so that we can put something like this front and center? Sometimes people call me and the frame is, how can I get this guy to commit? But actually, when we really dig into it, this guy isn't available to commit, and there's something in you that continues to say yes to that, which is the thing that we need to work on and relax. So a lot of this is about bringing your life and your vision and what you energize in your life into alignment with yourself. So the other thing I'll say is that probably in comparison to most of the coaches out there, I work a lot more at the inquiry end of reality, meaning I'm not only going to say, this is this, that's that, and you need to do this, right? Unless you have this type of dating profile, you're never going to have a relationship. There are people out there in the marketplace if that's what you need. My conversation tends to be a little deeper and more real in a certain way. I'm not just trying to consult to you. I'm actually trying to coach and inquire with you, right? Kind of meaning my job is to open up new territory, new vistas for you, new ways of looking at yourself, new possibilities for your life, unwinding patterns that are deeply held, that limit your ability to see yourself and life more clearly. So this is, it's advanced work. I don't tend to coach people who, only yesterday just heard the word coaching for the first time, and I don't mean that pejoratively. I just mean there's different people who work with different types of people all over the marketplace of coaching. Most people that work with me have done some work. They've done some work on themselves. They have done some developmental work. Maybe they've worked with other coaches or worked with a therapist. They have been in some self-inquiry and examination. I also like working with people who've tried a bunch of stuff and it hasn't really worked for them. I'm really open to working with people like that. Sometimes I can, I've had people say like, gosh, I wish I hadn't done years of therapy and I just coached with you, and whatever works, Therapy can be incredibly effective for some things. This kind of work can be incredibly effective for some things. So the main things are, if it is a financial investment in coaching, right? So if you can't put food on the table, you should put food on the table, right? Meaning you've got to take care of the most immediate survival priorities first and foremost. But oftentimes, in order to coach, people will do different things, right? Sometimes they have a family member contribute towards coaching. Sometimes they pull money out of their property. Sometimes they've come into inheritance. Sometimes they've got a bonus or a commission from work. Sometimes they pay monthly, right? There's ways that we can work it, but it is an investment. More even than the finance is also just the investment that at this moment in your life you actually want to do some work, right? Kind of meaning I'm not going to be your oasis of sanity. That's not my role, right? So if you're in complete overwhelm and you were wanting to work with me, you'd have to be open to restructuring your life to bring more order and sanity, right? So that we can support this sort of work, because this sort of work, it's opening things up, right? It's an open-ended inquiry. It's not always just a linear process, but it is usually a deep and a meaningful process. So yeah, and I'll say this, if you click the link and apply, there's no obligation on you, there's no cost to you, and if I think it's a good fit, I put my time on the line, right? So I'm the one that gets on the phone. I'm not being paid to get on the phone, so it's a pretty low to no risk model from your side. So I say to people, if it's something you're thinking of, then hit the application and let's take it from there. Alrighty, I got to wrap here shortly. Let me just see if I can come. What did I miss here? Hi, Jack. Nice to see you live. Your content's changed my life. Well, I'm happy to hear that, Jackie. I hope things are well. That's gratifying. Listening online is great, but doesn't compare to one-on-one coaching. Definitely worth the price. Jack is very intuitive, perceptive, and his guidance spot on. Thank you, Linda. Thank you. Thank you for your valued opinion. I appreciate it. Access Light says, I'll be cautious on this. We got slightly physical, so I raised it as a question. Well, I'm happy you did that. I think that's always good, right? If you're going to step into physical territory, it's good to be aligned. I think he's also seeing others. Okay. Will not be around for a while, is on hold, so let's see. Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah. Stay well and happy and healthy. Great stream. Thank you for the answers. I can tell you must be a great coach, Jack. You seem very intuitive. I'm lucky to have a great counselor who helps me reflect on my behaviors and thought processes. Great. Right on. All right, everybody. Well, look, happy Friday. Get at it if it's still a happy hour end of the workday here, or if you're tuning in from Europe. I wish you good and quality sleep. Or if you're listening after the event, thank you also for being here. It's been fun being with you all. I appreciate all the questions, some really great questions today. And if you're interested in coaching, click that link and explore it. And I look forward to talking with those of you for whom this might be a good time to be looking at coaching. All right. Love to you all. Have a great weekend. Take care.